Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session, Spark Tank Coaching. I am live with you all today. Joining me today, as usual, is the lovely Kylie Denton and Bram LeGroux as our coaches. Howdy, guys.
Howdy.
And
Hey.
special
Hello.
guest, Fiona Price,
Hey.
marketing extraordinaire. Thank you for being our guest speaker for today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Beautiful.
So, first of all,
Yeah.
Kylie, are you still in Melbourne?
I'm not. I'm back. I got back last night to sunny weather. I experienced everything that Melbourne has to offer. Rain, sunshine, cold.
And wine, really important.
Wine. Red wine too. Look, it was just, do you know what, Arthur? I just love Melbourne. I really do. It's just got this beautiful vibe to it. But I was presenting at the MCG, which was just absolutely magnificent. And I walked around the entire MCG and I seriously felt it was like magical. You're surrounded by legends, and with all those big, beautiful statues around, I felt really special. I felt it was just really amazing.
Fantastic. Sorry I missed you.
Yeah.
I flew in late on Monday. Yeah, and an early rise on Tuesday just wasn't on the cards, but we'll catch up in Brisbane when I'm up soon. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm looking
All right,
forward to it.
so look, why don't you introduce us to your guest speaker, Fiona?
Beautiful. So welcome, Fiona. Fiona and I have known each other for, I don't know, I'm going to say about 8 years now we've been working together. Fiona has over 15 years experience in marketing. She's a certified practicing marketer. She's worked across the Australia and the UK, so you'll hear her accent soon. She looks at and works with a number of different or wide range of industries, startups, small businesses and large corporates. And she's just got that really broad overview of marketing. And I thought, why not have Fiona on and let her speak to our audience a little bit about, what she does and also the benefits of marketing and also how it applies to small businesses. So thanks for joining us, Fi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So I'm really keen to get into a couple of questions. And when I was running a presentation yesterday for a large dealer group, and one of the financial planners came up who runs his own financial planning practice, and he said to me, we're sort of just starting on that marketing journey. And I asked him where he is starting on that journey. What kind of things is he doing? And I thought it would be a good question for you to share with our audience, where should small or SMEs start when it comes to marketing? What things should they consider? What platforms could they use? What things should they be marketing to their audience? Sorry, that was a 3-in-1 question.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my first response to a lot of people when they ask that question is, let's put the toolbox away initially, because I think everybody is really keen on picking up a tool, be it Instagram or video or email marketing, whatever it might be. And I always say to them, let's close the lid on the toolbox for now, and let's take a step back and really dig into what we want to achieve, because really, depending on what we want to achieve will depend when we open the lid of that toolbox, what kind of tool we're going to get out. So, I'll often have a client or a potential client come to me and say, okay, I need to be on Insta. And then I'll throw back the question, why? What do we want to do? And I think that's always really the starting point, is before we even think about the tools, is looking at what we want to achieve. And I think that's important as well, because I'm sure all of us, and including me, who's, in marketing all day, every day, the tools can be quite overwhelming. Every day there's a new tool. And there's also a bit of FOMO. Oh, well, that my competitor over there is doing this. Should I be doing that? And especially when it comes to small and medium-sized businesses, we have finite time, finite resources. So we can't do everything. And so I always say, figure out what you really want to achieve, and also be okay with doing a couple of things really well rather than doing a lot of things not so well.
Yeah. Because I think you can get caught up. We're big testers and learners in my company. You know that, Fee. I love test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. And we actually removed ourselves from a couple of platforms because I went, what are we on here for? We weren't getting traction. We weren't getting comments. We weren't getting interaction and engagement. I said, let's drop it.
Results count for sure.
Results count, yeah. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
When you think about a financial planning practice, is there anything that you go out of all of out of all the platforms, you absolutely need to be on this one? Is it
well, look, I guess I'd always say, okay, well, where are your market? And so when it comes to financial planning, I would say, okay, where is your core market? Is it the kind of older generation, or is it the kind of middle life stage? And then once we know who we are looking to find, then that will dictate the platform itself. And, if it is people that are, I guess, in the older, if we're looking at retirees and so on, then, maybe the digital space is not always that first solution. So really, I think I would almost again throw it back and say, okay, well, who are you looking to target? And then we look at where are they, because that's where we need to play.
Yeah, good answer. Bram, what are your thoughts when it comes to small businesses and marketing?
I'm not sure if Arthur wanted to. He's probably talking to somebody else. Look, I thought straight away of the idea of avatar. So yeah, if you don't know who you're wanting to reach, well, you ain't gonna hit the target if you can't see it. So you got to be really clear in terms of who are these people. So whether it's the accumulators, it's the people that are downsizing, the people that are already retired or pre-retirees. It's very different. There's different demographics, social graphics, and so on and so forth. But what do I see? I think a lot of people think that they got to do everything, and they don't do anything really well.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely interesting then to hear from Fee, who does this day in, day out, as you said. Like, if budgets are tight, or let's say limited, how many things should you actually pursue at any given point in time? And how long should we give it in terms of testing and refining? Until you say, you know what? We either stick at it and we keep doing it and we increase it, or we just pull the plug and do something different.
I think it that really depends on the product or service that you're selling. So, if it's something that has quite a long customer life cycle. So, for example, if you're a mortgage broker and you're trying to get new clients on board, to get them all the way across the line to home loan status, that could take months and months and months. So we don't want to just say, let's try something for a few weeks and see if it works. And if it doesn't, we'll switch to something else, because you're really not going to know the answer to this for 3, 6, even 12 months. Whereas something a lot more straightforward, I don't know, something really simple like $2 pens, if you put something out to market and after a month or so you're getting no bites, then that would be something, okay, well, if I'm not getting any traction here, it's time to maybe refine, optimize, and change direction. So I think in terms of how long you give something when it comes to marketing techniques, it really depends on how long your path to purchase is for your particular customers. I know, I guess, just from my personal experience, sometimes I'll have conversations with prospects 2-3 years before, and then there'll be an email in my inbox because the seed's been planted. So it's really, I think, depends on the product or service you're selling and how long you should allow that testing and time before you tweak things, because you just don't know if you've got it right if you haven't given it enough time.
Fair point.
And I guess to your question, what should you try? And I guess I know Kylie and Bram, we've talked a little bit about this in the past. I put things in 3 toolboxes. I talk about tools and toolboxes. So I always say, okay, we really need 3 types of toolbox when it comes to the tools we're using. We have our customers now toolbox. We have our customers later toolbox, and we have our strong brand toolbox. And in each of those toolboxes, we have a selection of tools at our disposal. And when it comes to the customers now, that's generally the advertising. You turn the advertising on, you start to see the traction pretty quickly. Then the customers later toolbox, that's the kind of stuff that we do the work now, but it might be 6-12 months before we see the benefit. I always say it's like planting an apple tree in your garden right now. You're not going to be eating the apples this year, it'll be next year. So that's like the SEO, the search engine optimization side of things. And then the third toolbox is the strong brand toolbox. And when I talk about strong brand, it's less about the logos and the fonts and the colors and that kind of thing. It's more about what people are seeing, saying, and hearing about you out there in the world. And that can be things like your reviews, if you're engaging in PR, your content, your email marketing, your socials, basically everything out there that you're doing to help steer what people see, say, and hear about you. And again, that's a lot of tools in those boxes. So I always say, look, pick a tool from each box and then run with it. And then depending on your path to purchase, if it's a 60-day, 90-day, 180-day, whatever that looks like for you, run with those tools in those 3 boxes for that period of time. And then at the end, be constantly optimizing and checking as you go. But at the end of that period, it's either time to select some more tools, or also being okay with the fact that, I'm achieving what I want to. I'm going to stick with these tools. I don't need to add more tools because the tools I'm using are working really well for me. I think it's being okay with that as well. Yeah. So yes, that's how I generally split the toolboxes up.
Beautiful. Arthur, questions or thoughts from you?
Yes, thank you. I really like that framework, Fiona. And I've optimized our marketing strategy. We, in our business, we have a more narrower audience. It's the financial advisors in the country. So it's a kind of finite pool. And so, over time, we have the now strategies that you talked about, which is I was actually wrong thinking that LinkedIn is the only platform to connect with prospect advisors. I recently learned that Facebook is actually quite a good tool to connect or communicate to prospect advisors. It was a big learning shift, and really the strategies that we have on Facebook is that brand perception and awareness. So we have like a brand awareness campaign on Facebook, and I've used Google Ads, I've used LinkedIn Sales Nav, I've used it all, and that seems to be a very good connection point with my audience for my avatar, client avatar. And that's financial advisors, so B2B. The tomorrow is more around the SEO, like you said, and so we've optimized our website and invested in that exercise to appear in natural Google searches, and that works quite well. And so that that's kind of been the balancing act. But the question I have is, I've had to go through a bit of waste to get to that. And my biggest question is, how do you avoid being a dabbler? What I mean by a dabbler is I'll play with this and I'll set an ad, spend limit of this, and then you look back 12 months and you've spent 10,000 and you've done nothing. Yeah. So there's in my mind, for the financial planners out there that are kind of trying to work out, when do I speak to someone like Fiona to come up with my strategy? I think there's got to be a rule of thumb, which you would probably know, is what is a critical mass of investment required to actually get meaningful traction and cut through. Because if you just dabble and invest, a couple $100 here or there, you're not going to achieve anything. So there's got to be a critical mass where the algorithms pay more attention to your effort. And that's kind of the investment, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, well, look, I always, whenever it comes to, and I guess we're talking about campaigns here, probably focused either on LinkedIn or in Facebook land. And I always say for anything new that we start, always have in your mind that we're going to go for a month. A month, I would say, is enough time to test and learn and change and tweak, because, sometimes we turn a campaign on and on day one, the leads flow in and we can all sit back and enjoy. Other times we need to change and tweak and shift things and optimize and change messaging and so on. So I always say, when it comes to digital, think of a month. And then when it comes to ad spend, LinkedIn and Facebook sit at similar spend thresholds, but again, it would come back to your audience. So if I would be recommending, for example, if I was working with a nutritionist and they have a Brisbane-based clinic and everybody that comes through their doors is within a 10k radius of Brisbane, for example, I would say start with something really modest, $5 to $10 a day ad spend, because the area that you're targeting is small enough for us to get some decent data from that ad spend. Conversely, if you're going after an audience Australia-wide, so if you're an online player and you want to hit Australia and everybody in it in a certain target audience, I'd say start with $20 a day in the first instance. And what we do is, it's, as you said, it's all about test and measure. The great thing is these days with digital marketing is there's not really a lot of guesswork anymore. It's, we know 3, 4, 5 days into a campaign how it's going to perform. And then we can start forecasting out. So if we're spending 20 a day and we're getting 3 leads a day in, then it really comes back to, okay, well, how many of those leads are we converting and how many more could we withstand and continue to nurture and convert? Because once we've got those pieces of the jigsaw, it's really easy for us to say, okay, let's scale up. Like if we're getting this for 20 a day, then we can forecast we would get this for 40 a day and so on. And I think most people, once they can see for every dollar coming in, spending on ads, how many dollars are coming back in sales and so on, you're happy to spend more dollars if you know more is coming back. So it's really that, start small. I always say start small, but as long as we can get that data in to be able to start forecasting. And then when we feel confident in what we're getting, if we want to dial things up, then we can.
What does great look like, Fiona? If I love that idea of, you spend this much and then you go with that much return. What does great look like in that ratio from a digital marketing perspective?
Well, it would depend on the value of each customer. So, if somebody's selling $50 skincare products, then their return on investment that they're willing to withstand will be very different to somebody that's wanting to attract $5,000 training courses. So, for example, somebody that's selling $50 skincare products probably doesn't want to be spending more than $5-10 on the ad side of things, because they've got costs and actually making the products and so on. But conversely, if somebody's selling a $5,000 training program, then they would probably be pretty happy if they were spending $500 to acquire that $5,000 client. So again, I think it comes back to really knowing the value, not only of that initial value, but the lifetime value, because if somebody comes once, then hopefully they'll stay with you a long time. So even if initially that initial transaction appears at face value to be low value, if this particular person stays with you for 12 months, 24 months, 5 years even, then the lifetime value of that customer is significant. So you would be happy to bear a larger acquisition cost to get them in your door.
Absolutely. Sorry, Arthur.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a lag on my end. So I have two more questions, if I may. So lead forms
Yes.
versus redirection to website and
Okay.
inquiry
Speak
through
all day on
website.
this.
Okay? Yeah.
I could speak all day on this. Okay, so I guess in a nutshell,
A/B
from
test.
a quantity perspective, lead forms all the way. Couple of reasons for that. One, the person doesn't leave Facebook. Two, everything pretty much is pre-filled for them, so it's really easy for them to take that action. The downside that I sometimes hear from that lead form approach is the quality of lead is not always as great. Indeed. So that's great for quantity, not so great sometimes for quality. However, we can mitigate that somewhat. I always recommend when doing a lead form approach that you add in 3 or 4 what I call screening questions to help, I guess, remove the tire kickers. So don't just go with name, email, telephone number. The reason is they're all pre-populated. Somebody can submit without even really knowing they submit, but also ask a few other questions. Not only does that help get a little bit more insight for you, so when you do speak to that particular prospect, you've got more information on them. It also helps remove people that may not be that interested and are just, as I said, tire kicking. So that's something we can do to mitigate the quality issue. Leading people to the website is a really good way to do it. A couple of things. They get onto your website, they experience your brand. If you've got more information about whatever you're promoting to them, they can see that there and then. The real, I guess, downside, if there is a downside to that, is the quantity can be less than on the lead side form, simply because we're dragging them from Facebook and pushing them onto your website, and then we're expecting them to do something else. However, the quality of leads often from a website-based inquiry do tend to be a little bit stronger than just through the lead form approach.
I might add to that, Fee, as well, is that it's important when they're doing those lead forms or going to the website that there is a nurture sequence, okay, with the emails as well. We don't want to just get a lead form, try and call them, and then we don't do anything with them. We want to take them on that sequence of, 4, 5, 6 emails, and then moving them into your email database from there, because they might have done it, but it might have been at 10 o'clock at night and they're busy for the next couple of weeks. And if we don't have that nurture sequence, they might not come back to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, I think.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to kind of talk to that. And I always say, I guess, when we do any kind of lead generation and we start getting those leads, they fall into 3 boxes. I'm a fan of boxes here. You're getting a bit of a theme here. 1, they are hot to trot right now, and let's nurture them and hopefully get them over the line. 2, they're interested, but they're not yet ready. Get them into the nurture sequence and continue to reach out to them. And then the 3rd ones, which maybe will never, ever interact again. So I think you're right, Kylie, that nurture sequence is really important, especially for these guys that are interested but are not quite ready to take that step right now.
Do you have an idea in terms of what the percentages look like, Fee, of the 3 buckets that you just mentioned? Typically,
I would say for every 10 leads that come in, around 25% of them would be ready to take that next step pretty quickly. And the other 75% would probably be shared pretty equally among the other. I would say normally about a third of leads are probably and wouldn't go anywhere. But with anything in terms of lead generation, it's a pure numbers game. And as long as we get those numbers in the right amounts, then we're prepared to bear, if you like, the fact that a certain percentage of that, the leads coming in would not proceed further. And once we know that, 25% of them are the ones that move on into the sales funnel, then really that's really important for scaling, because then we say, okay, well, at the moment we're getting 100 leads a week and we're getting 25 conversions. Let's try and get 200 leads a week and get 50 conversions. So once we've got that, that whole maths piece, then it's really easy for us to scale.
I was just about to ask about that, because that's really the beauty with the digital marketing, right? It's so predictable once you worked out the numbers,
Yes.
and then you can kind of reverse engineer the machine to suit your capability in terms of both selling but also delivery.
Yeah. And and sometimes I always say it's a very nice, very nice problem to have, but sometimes there may be too many leads coming in. And at that stage, we can just either dial down the ad budget a little bit, or we can press the pause button. That is the beauty of digital versus the more traditional media. So yeah. But a nice problem to have, too many leads.
Love it. It's good to have a sales machine happening 24/7. So you don't need the sales team that is just on 9 to 5. Anyway,
Yeah.
Arthur.
Oh, look, Mike. Yeah, look, again, the delay. Your favorite CRM
Oh, I personally use
that will
HubSpot.
carry the integrated marketing program.
Okay, well, I
Value
use
for money.
HubSpot, but
HubSpot?
I would say that's what I use, but I would probably lean on what Kylie uses in terms of Active Campaign. Active Campaign is a CRM machine. And the great thing about something like Active Campaign is you can use a little bit of the functionality, or you can use everything and everything in between as well. So something like Active Campaign for me would be a great choice. And the way it learns and it becomes automated and takes the time off your admin desk, that because things are just happening, the nurturing and so on is just happening in the background. Yeah, something like Active Campaign for a CRM system with cloud, I would say. Yeah.
I've got one final
We'll get
question.
Active Campaign to send you a check.
Celebrity endorsement.
I've got one final question, and then we can see whether or not Arthur or Bram do. But one of the things I'm seeing a lot more now in my streams are videos of, a 1 minute video, 2 minute video, whatever it might be, as opposed to the text that we used to see a lot, or infographics, or even just text in LinkedIn. Are people wanting more videos? Are they wanting that connection, that personalization? What are your thoughts in that space?
Yeah, look, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like with video, like a lot of what we're doing, especially in the service space, is connecting with people, and people really have to resonate. Like, we're all humans, so people have to really resonate with the people within the businesses that they're potentially working with, and nothing speaks to that more than video. You can feel like you know somebody before you've ever had any kind of personal interaction if you've been exposed to them on video versus the image, text, etc. So I feel like it's something that people are doing more, and I guess being more receptive of, just because it feels like you already know that person. And I guess touching on that point about it being, we're all humans and so on, and what you said, Arthur, in terms of being Facebook versus LinkedIn. Now, I kind of agree with that, in the fact that everybody initially, when they're in the B2B space, feels like, okay, I need to be marketing on LinkedIn. I need to be marketing on LinkedIn. And there's definitely a role for LinkedIn in B2B marketing. But again, we're all humans. And even whoever you're trying to reach in a business perspective, 90% of them will be on Facebook as well, because we still play in that space. And, I'm only talking to my own habits. LinkedIn, I maybe jump on 2 or 3 times a day. Probably don't want to admit that on Facebook, I'm probably on that a lot more frequently. So the chances of reaching me on Facebook as a prospect are far greater than on LinkedIn, simply because I'm there more.
Yeah.
And we haven't even spoken now, talking about video, the importance of YouTube, where lots of people actually searching for information are already there and are ready to be educated and told how to do it, which means that's also another great avenue, I think, especially for services-based people to derive leads from.
Yes,
absolutely.
Started in that space, haven't we, Fee? We've I've
Absolutely.
started to do some lead generation work in YouTube as well for some of our masterclasses. So you're absolutely right. People are on there.
And I guess even from a value for money perspective, it's a pretty cheap platform in terms of ads. You know, we talking about $20 a day, like really, you know, in terms of YouTube with a significant audience, $5 a day is certainly enough to start that ball rolling. And then once you can see what that looks like, if you want to dial up, you can, or not. But yeah, it's a really good platform for lead generation. And also sometimes, especially when you've got a message that takes a bit of explaining and you maybe can't do it with words and pictures, then video is the perfect way to get that across.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Fee. That was great. That was really good. I think that's going to be able to help many businesses try to demystify, you know, that the social media, the marketing, what platforms to use, how much do I spend, where do I start? So thanks for sharing it. Where can people reach out to you if they want to get in contact?
Yeah, sure. So my website is fionapottsmarketing.com. So hopefully my SEO is pretty good. So if you have a search in Google, you should be able to find me there. Or I'm on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
And
I'd say if you type in digital, if you type in digital marketer and then your name pops up, then your SEO is definitely working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we better test that.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks so much, Fee. That was great.
That's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Summary. Well done, Kylie, for introducing us to Fiona. Fiona, thank you so much for your insights. Very much appreciated. And to all our viewers, please reach out to Fiona with any inquiries to assist you with your digital marketing strategy. And I like to use the word integrated marketing strategy because it can involve multiple platforms in terms of social media, but also the role of combining email and social media footprint. But in behind that is the whole, you know, the strategy. It's got to all come together and held together by a platform that can sequence activity like a good CRM, like we mentioned, which I think is a very important decision-making point. Certain CRMs have startup bundled offers that offer good value for money that can allow you to build email sequencing and also integrate all your forms from your social media footprints back into the system and give you that one control point and performance oversight. I think that's an important decision so that you can understand that critical mass point on how much to invest over what period of time. But my rule of thumb, as I say to all my front-end planning practices, is if you're not, you know, you need to be spending at least 5% of your total turnover on marketing, 5% minimum, and don't argue about it. Like, you know, and then roll with it. For startup, potentially you need to do a little bit more, up to 10. But if you're not at least investing 5% of your turnover into marketing, you're going to feel it down the line because it kind of, it's like the silent, not investing in that part of your business is like the silent, enemy. It creeps up on you and you don't really feel it. And then all of a sudden you're going, why am I not talking to anyone? And then you've got to turn the Queen Mary around, and that takes potentially 6 to 12 months to ramp it back up again. So you got to constantly
feeding the beast.
add money into the pool.
Yeah, agree. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.